Hi there and welcome to my YouTube church, where we will today go through the prophecies of the Bible. Now, in our first program, we learned how John the Apostle was using the calendar in his own time to tell us when the beast of the Bible shall appear. Now, the calendar in John the Apostle's lifetime was not the calendar we have today, but it was a Roman calendar, and it was reformed by a man who calls himself Julius Caesar. He was living some 100 years before John the Apostle, and he was a Roman conqueror and a Roman emperor, as well as a Roman self-proclaimed sun god. So in his process of reforming this calendar, not only did he change the month of July to become a month of his name, he also changed the length of the month, of the hours, and of the days, so that every hour within this calendar, every day within this calendar, actually will be referred to as numbers of a man. Today, this calendar is known as the Julian calendar, and it became the main calendar throughout much of the world for more than 1,600 years. So when the Bible say, "Here is wisdom, let him that has understanding count the number of the beast, for it is the number of a man, and his number is 666, what we see here is that John the Apostle are giving us the year of when the beast shall appear, based upon the calendar which was existing in his lifetime, and it's also the calendar with numbers of a man. And if we do follow to the year 666 within this calendar, that should actually be year 621 in the calendar we use today, we will find that this is the birth of a new religion. This is the birth of Islam. More accurate than the Islamic calendar itself, at this point in history, we find the first Pact of Aqaba took place, also known as the first Pledge of Aqaba. That was when 12 men, just like Jesus had 12 disciples, came in front of Muhammad and took an oath to associate him and only him with God. In other words, they became the first Muslims. In other words, the birth of Islam. But the Bible already contains two pacts. The Old Testament means the Old Pact, the New Testament means the New Pact, and what we see here is the Bible foretelling us of this third pact taking place, and the Bible also calls it the Great Deceiver. And today Islam is the fastest growing religion in the world. No other historical character have such an impact as Muhammad except Jesus. But regardless of this, and for no particular reason at all, the Islamic calendar starts at the year 622 based upon the location of the moon, which in turn makes the Islamic calendar to become a lunar calendar. But that was the learning of the last video. In this video today we will continuing to go further into the chapter 13 in the book of Revelation, which contain the writings about the beast. And the first problem we find when we do this is that the chapter is not about only one beast, it actually talks about two beasts. So before we can actually start any interpretation of this prophetic scripture, you have to determine which of the beasts is which. Because while the first 50% of this chapter talks about a beast that comes out of the sea, the last 50% of the chapter talks about a beast that comes out of the land, and how this beast actually interacts with the first beast. And it is because of this interaction between these two beasts that has been giving so many different prophetic interpretations of the scripture during the years. But let us first start with this first part of the chapter, which talks about a beast that comes from the sea. It is described as a beast that has the feet of a bear, the body of a leopard, and a face of a lion. It also have 7 heads and 10 horns, and one of these 7 heads is also described as a head which is as if it was wounded to die, but then later on came to live again. Then he also writes about how the dragon, that is of course the Satan in all this, gives this beast all its power and all its authority, and the whole world should sort of look upon this beast and say, wow, what a beast, who can wage a war against such a beast? Now, of course, we will in later programs go much more in detail and interpret this chapter sentence by sentence. But the purpose here of this program for today is to give the viewer a better understanding of which of these two beasts have the identity of 666 and which of these two beasts have the identity of which the mark and so on. But for a better understanding of it all, it is actually also needed now then to give you the identity of this beast that comes from the sea. But the interpretation of it and how we came to this conclusion will be then given in later programs. This beast from the sea has been interpreted to be a combined forces of United Nations, United States of America, European Union and NATO. But, like I said, how we came to that conclusion will be shown in a later program. Also, we can tell you that the 7 heads on this beast are interpreted to be the 7 empires which have in time laid its empire over the promised land of Israel. Those are the Persians, the Assyrians, the Babylonians, the Egyptians, the Greek and the Roman, and finally then this last one, the West, with UN, European Union and of course USA in it. But in this final part of this first 50% of the chapter, there also comes a warning towards the Christians on how this beast from the sea will act against them. And I'll put a red X here because this subject will occur in several other prophetic words which are coming up later on. Because when a prophet talks about killing, he does not talk about killing which will mean ending your life. God, who gives everybody life, knows that ending your life will happen sooner or later. And God is not a killer because he ends your life. Killing is when you do not get into heaven. This beast will kill your faith. But I'm getting ahead of myself here, so just take notice of this red mark and I will bring that red mark on later on as well. So that was the first beast, and now let's start on the second beast. Next then is the beast that comes from the land. This beast is described as a lamb and it has 2 horns and it speaks as a dragon. Now dragon is Satan again. And then it continues to write how this beast from the land shall interact with the beast that comes from the sea and how this beast from the sea will respond to it. Now John the Apostle calls this beast from the sea then the beast that had this deadly wound and came to live again. That is because John the Apostle is being quite more specific here when he tries to tell you which of these 7 empires he is talking about. And here comes the important part which I want you to focus on then, because from here it continues to write how this beast that had the deadly wound and came to live again will then state out a mark to be placed on people's hand or on people's head, and that nobody can buy or sell without them having this mark or having the number of the beast. And the question is then, what beast are we talking about in this part of the chapter? We're talking about the beast from the land. So there's a dual situation in this. You would either have the mark from the beast from the sea, or you have the number of the beast from the land. So in short, to summarize all this so far, what we're saying here then is that the beast from the land, that is Islam, will see to it that the beast from the sea, that is the West, will place out a mark to be placed on people's head or on people's hand, and that nobody can trade or buy or sell without this mark. And you would need that mark, or you would need to have the numbers of Islam, or you would need to have the faith of Islam. So the mark here, which the Bible so strongly warns you against to take, actually comes from the West, but the great deceiver in all of this, the great deceiver of mankind, we found to be Islam, as this is the identity we find appearing at year 666 in this calendar made by man. And finally, we can look into our own world and see how these prophecies are actually coming true. Today, Islamic groups that will be the beast from the land have seen to it that the West have placed a mark on people's head or on people's hand, We can already see this taking place at airports as so-called fingerprint scan. They are there because of Muslim fundamentalism. It has not yet become activated to become this biblical mark, but in time, as this fingerprint system will increase in magnitude and so on, this system of the mark will be activated. But more on this on later programs. From now on, turn Christian. See you later, and bye bye.